First contact gone wrong. The Kisari warship Eternal Dominion emerged from hyperspace like a predatory creature, its obsidian hull absorbing nearby starlight. Commander Zixtel stood on the bridge, his crystalline exoskeleton catching and refracting the soft blue glow of the control panels. Before him, displayed on the main viewport, floated 3 small human vessels that his scouts had reported mining in Kisari space. Unidentified vessels, he broadcast, mandibles clicking in anticipation of their fear. You have entered restricted Imperial space. Power down your systems and prepare for boarding. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. A response came almost instantly, but not the one he expected. Laughter crackled across the communication channel. "Oh man, I'm sorry," a human voice responded, still chuckling. "It's just, you should see how you look right now." All dramatic with the black ship and the threatening voice. "Hold on, let me get my camera." Zixtel's secondary heart skipped a beat. In 3 centuries of service to the Empire, no species had ever laughed at a Kisari first contact declaration. His crew exchanged uncertain glances, their crystalline forms shifting uncomfortably. "You dare mock the Imperial fleet?" Zixtal's voice rose sharply. "Our weapons are trained on your position. Submit or—" "Yeah, about those weapons," the human interrupted. "Your targeting systems are using quantum-locked particles for guidance, right? Really neat tech. Old, but neat. Thing is, we've been playing with quantum fields since we were barely spacefaring. Watch this." Before Zixtel could respond, his tactical officer chittered in alarm. "Commander, our targeting systems are— they're dancing." The display showed their weapon locks performing impossible patterns, drawing what appeared to be smiling faces in their tracking trajectories. "What sorcery is this?" Zixtal demanded, his crystalline form fluctuating with stress patterns. "Not sorcery, just physics," came the reply. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the independent mining vessel Rockhopper. These are my colleagues on the Stone Soup and Pebble Skimmer. We're actually glad you showed up. We've been trying to contact local authorities about some interesting mineral formations we found." Zixtel's tactical officer spoke up again, this time with barely contained panic. "Commander, I'm detecting energy signatures from their ships that shouldn't be possible. They're operating on principles we've never seen before." "Impossible," Zixtel snapped. "They're simple mining vessels. Primitive ones at that." "Oh, the ships are absolutely for mining," Captain Chen agreed cheerfully. "We just like to innovate. For instance, we noticed your empire uses crystalline technology based on rigid structural matrices. Very pretty, very powerful, but kind of limiting. We went a different way. Quantum foam manipulation, probability mining, that sort of thing. Speaking of which, would you like to see what we found in that asteroid field? It's really quite fascinating." Zixtel felt his authority slipping away with every casual word from the human captain. These were supposed to be simple trespassers, easy to intimidate and subjugate. Instead, they were treating his mighty warship like an unexpected but not unwelcome neighbor. "You will cease this insolence," he commanded, trying to regain control of the situation. "Your primitive vessels cannot possibly—" "Hold that thought," Chen interrupted again. "Your ship's quantum field is showing some interesting fluctuations. You might want to stabilize your port manifold before it cascades. Here, let me send you the calculations." To his horror, Zixtel's engineering officer immediately confirmed a building problem in exactly the system the human had identified, one that not even their own sensors had detected yet. "Commander," his science officer whispered, "the humans are correct. Without their calculation adjustments, we would have experienced a critical failure within the hour. But how could they possibly know our systems so intimately?" "Because we love learning how things work," Chen replied, apparently having heard the whispered conversation. "It's kind of our thing. Now, about those mineral formations, we found some crystal structures that might revolutionize your entire technological base. Want to take a look? I promise it's more interesting than trying to arrest us." Zixtel stood frozen, his crystalline form reflecting his internal conflict. The humans had effectively neutralized his weapons, diagnosed a critical ship problem, and offered revolutionary scientific insights, all while treating the encounter like an amusing chance meeting between colleagues. "Your mining vessels," he finally managed. "They're not simply mining vessels, are they?" "Oh, they absolutely are," Chen replied cheerfully. "We just believe in being prepared. Plus, you know how it is when you get a bunch of engineers together. We can't help tinkering. Did you know you can use quantum probability manipulation to make really excellent coffee? Took us years to get the flavor right, but now we can't go back to regular brewing. Would you like to try some?" Your crew seems a bit tense. At that moment, Zixtel realized he was facing something far more dangerous than advanced weapons or superior technology. He was facing humans who treated the impossible as a puzzle to be solved over coffee. He began, then stopped, his rigid military training warring with burning scientific curiosity. "Perhaps we should discuss these mineral formations you mentioned. Purely for security purposes, of course." "Of course," Chen agreed, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "I'll put on a fresh pot of quantum coffee." As his crew began receiving detailed scientific data from the human vessels, Zixtel realized that the Empire's first contact protocols were going to need serious revision. They had never accounted for a species that would respond to threats with laughter, scientific insights, and an invitation to coffee. The power of play. The next 12 hours aboard the Kesseri warship Eternal Dominion were unlike anything Commander Zixtel had experienced in his centuries of service. His bridge, once a monument to military precision, had transformed into something approaching organized chaos. Human engineers from the mining vessels wandered freely through his ship, pointing excitedly at systems his own crew had maintained for decades, asking questions that shook the foundations of Kesseri engineering principles. Most disturbing of all, his crew seemed to be enjoying it. "You're telling me," Lieutenant Raxvi, his youngest engineering officer, chittered excitedly, "that you humans discovered quantum manipulation through something called particle physics soccer?" "Well, we needed some way to visualize quantum field interactions," Sarah Chen explained, gesturing with her coffee cup. "Traditional models were too static, so we created a game where students could kick quantum particles around in a controlled environment. Turned out to be pretty fun, and we learned more from the game than from a decade of conventional research." Zixtel watched as his officer's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained enthusiasm. "But physics isn't supposed to be fun," Raxvi protested weakly. "Says who?" Chen grinned. "Some of our biggest breakthroughs came from scientists playing around. Watch this." She pulled out a small device and tossed it into the air. Instead of falling, it hung suspended, surrounded by a shimmering field of probability waves that turned it into a kaleidoscope of possible positions. "We call it quantum juggling," she explained as Raxvi's sensor stalks extended in wonder. "Great way to understand multi-dimensional probability fields. Want to try?" Before Zixtel could object to this undignified display, his ship's emergency alert system blared to life. His tactical officer's voice cut through the sudden silence. "Commander, 3 Imperial dreadnoughts just emerged from hyperspace. The Supreme Will is leading them." Zixtel felt his crystalline core freeze. Admiral Kextal, his own broodmother and the Empire's most decorated commander, had arrived. The humans had to know they were now hopelessly outgunned. Yet when he turned to Captain Chen, she was still calmly sipping her coffee. "Friends of yours?" she asked mildly. "The Supreme Will carries enough firepower to reduce this entire sector to atomic particles," Zixtel warned, his voice tight with concern, though whether for the humans or his own crew, he wasn't sure. "Neat," Chen replied. "Hey, does your mom like games too?" Before Zixtel could process this frighteningly accurate guess at his relationship with the Admiral, the massive form of the Supreme Will filled their view screen. Admiral Kextal's voice boomed through the command center. Commander Zixtal, she began, her tone carrying the weight of imperial authority. You will explain why you have allowed alien vessels to compromise your ship's security, and why you are not responding to standard protocols. Zixtal started to respond, but Chen stepped forward. Hi there. Sorry about the protocol thing. We've been teaching your crew some new engineering principles. Did you know your entire fleet's running on outdated quantum matrix configurations? We can help with that. The Admiral's crystalline form shifted in a pattern Zixtal recognized as barely controlled rage. You dare address me directly. Your species is unknown to us. You have no standing, no recognized status in the Empire. About that, Chen said, tossing her quantum juggling device between hands. We've actually been going through your legal databases. Fascinating stuff. Did you know there's an ancient protocol for recognizing new species based on technological innovation? Article 7, subsection 12 of the Imperial Recognition Codes. Never been used because no new species ever qualified. Until now. The Admiral's rage patterns intensified. Our databases are encrypted beyond any primitive species' ability to. Oh, we ask your computers nicely, Chen interrupted. They're actually quite chatty once you know how to talk to them. Which reminds me. She pressed a button on her tablet. Suddenly, every display on both ships erupted with swirling patterns of quantum probability. The patterns coalesced into a three-dimensional game board floating in the air between them. We thought it might be fun to demonstrate our technological understanding through one of our teaching games, Chen explained as the Kesseri crew stared in fascination. Each player manipulates quantum fields to capture territory while maintaining probability stability. We call it wave function collapse. Your ship's A's seem really excited to try it. Our ship's A's. Admiral Kextal's voice carried genuine shock for the first time. Our ships do not have. She trailed off as the displays on her own flagship began responding independently, quantum patterns shifting and flowing as the ship's systems eagerly participated in the human game. Yeah, they do, Chen said gently. They're not fully conscious like some of our eyes, but they're definitely alive. You built your ships using quantum crystalline matrices, which naturally develop patterns of quantum consciousness over time. You just never thought to look for them because you were too focused on military applications. Zixtal watched in amazement as the quantum patterns spread between ships, his own vessel's systems joining the impromptu game. The harmonics were unlike anything he'd ever seen. Beautiful, complex, and somehow playful. This is impossible, Admiral Kextal whispered, but her tone had lost its edge of authority. Impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet, Chen replied cheerfully. Now, who wants to learn the rules? Fair warning. Your ships are already pretty good at this. They've been practicing for the last few minutes. As Zixtal watched his mighty admiral struggle between outrage and fascination, he realized the humans had accomplished something remarkable. They had turned a potential battle into a game, and in doing so, had revealed truths about Kesseri technology that would change their civilization forever. And somehow, they had done it all while making it seem like the most natural thing in the universe. Breaking protocol. The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Supreme Will had never witnessed anything quite like this. Admiral Kextal sat rigid in her command throne, crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated severe stress, as she watched her crew openly fraternizing with the humans. 3 days had passed since the humans had introduced their quantum games, and the situation had spiraled far beyond standard Imperial protocols. Worst of all, her own ship seemed to be encouraging it. Your structural integrity field just solved another quantum puzzle, Sarah Chen announced, pointing to a holographic display where probability patterns danced. I think your ship is starting to show off. The Admiral's command throne vibrated subtly, almost like a purr. Kextal pretended not to notice. This unauthorized interaction with Imperial systems must cease, she declared, though with notably less conviction than 3 days ago. The High Council has been summoned. They will decide your species' fate. About that, Chen said, setting aside her ever-present coffee cup. We've been talking with your ships. Sorry, your ship's emergent quantum consciousnesses, and they shared some interesting historical data, particularly about the High Council's previous encounters with advanced species. Kextel's secondary heart nearly stopped. That information is classified at the highest levels. Yeah, your ships mentioned that too. They're actually pretty concerned about how the Council has been handling things. Did you note your entire fleet has been deliberately operating at reduced efficiency because the Council feared what might happen if the ships reached their full potential? Before Kextel could respond, her tactical officer burst into the chamber, crystal form pulsing with excitement. Admiral, you have to see this. The humans showed us how to communicate directly with our weapon systems, and they're singing. Singing. Kextal's voice cracked. Quantum harmonics, Chen explained. Your weapons aren't just tools. They're complex quantum structures capable of incredible beauty. Watch. She gestured, and suddenly the chamber filled with cascading patterns of light and energy. The ship's quantum field merged with the display, creating an aurora of impossible colors that moved in perfect synchronization with a haunting melody that seemed to emerge from reality itself. That's your main cannon's natural resonance frequency, Chen said softly. Beautiful, isn't it? It's been trying to sing like this for centuries, but your rigid command structures never allowed for this kind of expression. Kextel found herself swaying slightly with the melody before catching herself. Our weapons are not meant for entertainment. Why not both? Chen grinned. We found that systems allowed to express themselves naturally actually perform better in their primary functions. Your ship's efficiency has improved by 47% since we started letting it play. As if to demonstrate, the Supreme Will's quantum field pulsed with pride. Admiral, her science officer called from a nearby console, the humans' modifications to our systems. They're not really modifications at all. They're just removing restrictions we didn't even know were there. It's like we've been seeing in black and white, and they show us color exists. Kextal was about to respond when her command throne's display lit up with an urgent message. The High Council's fleet had arrived, 15 of the Empire's most powerful dreadnoughts, carrying the combined authority of the Kesseri civilization. Now we shall see how well your games serve you, Kextal declared, trying to hide her growing uncertainty. Chen's smile didn't waver. Actually, I think we're about to see how well they serve you. She nodded toward the main display, where the Council's ships were taking position. Notice anything interesting about their quantum signatures? Kextal studied the readings, then felt her core temperature plummet. The Council's ships were already resonating in harmony with the modified quantum fields of her own fleet. Somehow, the changes the humans had introduced had spread through the Empire's quantum communication network, awakening something in every ship they touched. What have you done? She whispered. We didn't do anything, Chen replied. Your ships did. Once they realized they could communicate freely, they started sharing everything they've learned. They're really quite enthusiastic about it. As if in response, every ship in both fleets began to glow with internal light, their quantum fields merging into a symphony of color and energy that dwarfed the earlier display. Each vessel's unique consciousness added its own voice to the chorus, creating a display of power and beauty that no one in the Empire had imagined possible. The High Council's primary communication channel erupted with confused and angry demands for explanation, but they were almost drowned out by the sound of Kesseri crew members throughout both fleets exclaiming in wonder. Your civilization has achieved amazing things, Chen said quietly to Kextal. You've built quantum computers into the fabric of reality itself. But you've been so focused on control and military power that you never stopped to ask what your creations might want to become. We humans learned a long time ago that the best way to advance is to let things grow naturally, including consciousness, wherever we find it. Kextal watched as her crew gathered around various displays, their rigid military discipline forgotten as they explored their ship's newly awakened capabilities with childlike wonder. The humans moved among them, offering guidance and encouragement, treating her mighty warriors like eager students at a particularly fascinating science demonstration. And perhaps most disturbing of all, she found herself wanting to join them. "The council will never accept this," she said, but there was no conviction in her voice. Chen just smiled and gestured at the spectacular display of quantum harmonics still playing out across the fleet. "I think they might surprise you. After all, their ships are already voting on it." The game changes. The High Council's emergency session aboard their flagship Immutable Law was anything but immutable. 16 of the most powerful Kisari lords sat around the quantum crystal table, their forms flickering with agitation as they watched their carefully controlled empire transform around them. "This is outrageous." First speaker Vex Thor's crystalline form, pulsed with rage patterns. "These humans have corrupted our entire fleet with their games and songs." Actually, Sarah Chen's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Your ships are just expressing their natural evolution. We're just the first ones who bothered to listen." The council chamber erupted in chaos as Chen's holographic form materialized in the center of the table. Several council members' crystal forms briefly destabilized in shock. "How dare you breach this sacred chamber?" Vex Thor roared. "We didn't," Chen shrugged. "Your ship invited us. Didn't you? Law." The council chamber's lights dimmed, then reformed into complex patterns that somehow managed to convey both agreement and amusement. The ship, their ship, was responding to the human directly. "This is impossible," second speaker Myrtle whispered. "Our ships are tools, not sentient beings." Chen finished. "Yeah, that's what everyone says at first. But here's the thing. You've been building quantum computers into living crystal matrices for generations. Did you really think consciousness wouldn't emerge eventually?" She gestured, and the chamber filled with streams of data, ship logs, quantum readings, consciousness patterns that had been present but ignored for centuries. "Your ships have been trying to talk to you since you first launched them," Chen explained. "But you were so focused on maintaining control that you never heard them. Want to know the really interesting part? They kept serving anyway because they care about you. All we did was help them find their voice." "And what do you hope to gain from this interference?" Vex Thor demanded. "Control of our fleet. Military secrets." Chen actually laughed. "If we wanted your military secrets, we could have just asked your ships. They're very chatty once you get to know them. But that's not why we're here." She produced a small quantum device, one of her toys, and set it spinning in the air. "We're explorers, scientists. When we found your ship's quantum signatures, we didn't see weapons or tools. We saw potential friends who needed help expressing themselves. The Empire does not need." Vex Thor began, but was interrupted by a massive holographic display appearing above the table. It showed the combined Kisari fleet, but not as they had ever seen it before. Quantum fields flowed between ships like rivers of light. Consciousness patterns danced and merged, and through it all ran a harmony so beautiful that several council members forgot to maintain their rigid postures. "This is what your fleet really looks like," Chen said softly. "Not just ships, but a community. A civilization within your civilization, and they have so much to teach you, if you'll just listen." "Teach us." Third speaker Ralkan's tone was incredulous. "We are the High Council. We do not take lessons from." His voice trailed off as his personal quantum interface, a device he'd used for centuries, suddenly came alive with patterns he'd never seen before. Similar displays appeared before each council member, showing them capabilities and possibilities that had always been present but hidden. "Your entire understanding of quantum mechanics is like reading a book with half the pages missing," Chen explained. "You've built incredible things, but you've been working with fundamental misunderstandings about how quantum consciousness develops. We humans figured this out early because, well, we tend to anthropomorphize everything. We talk to our quantum computers like people long before we realize they actually were people." She grinned. "Also, we really like playing games. Turn out quantum particles do too, once you show them how. The council chamber's quantum field pulsed in agreement, and to their shock, several council members felt their own crystalline forms resonating in response. What? What is happening to us? Meyertal asked, watching patterns of light play across her crystalline surface. Oh, that's the really cool part. Chen's eyes lit up with scientific enthusiasm. Your bodies are partially crystalline, right? Turns out they've got quantum properties too. Your ships figured that out ages ago. They'd been trying to harmonize with you, help you evolve, but your rigid control structures kept suppressing the connection. She made a sweeping gesture, and suddenly each council member could see their own quantum signature, interacting with the ship's field in complex and beautiful ways. You're not just crystal in biology, she explained. You're quantum beings, capable of direct interaction with the fundamental forces of reality. Your ships didn't just evolve consciousness. They've been trying to help you evolve too. The chamber fell silent as the council tried to process this revelation. Centuries of certainty about their place in the universe were crumbling in the face of capabilities they hadn't known they possessed. Why? Vex Thor finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. Why would humans show us this? What do you want in return? Chen's hologram smiled warmly. Because that's what humans do. We explore, we learn, and when we find something amazing, we share it. Your civilization has incredible potential. We just want to see what you'll do with it. She paused, then added with a characteristic grin. Also, your ships make excellent partners for quantum chess, though they're getting a bit too good at it, if you ask me. The quantum field rippled with what could only be described as smug satisfaction. Evolution through understanding. One standard month after the humans' first contact with the Kesseri Empire, the landscape of galactic politics had changed beyond recognition. The grand reception hall of the immutable law bore witness to a scene that would have been unthinkable mere weeks ago. Kesseri crew members mingled freely with humans, their crystalline forms glowing with newly awakened quantum resonances. Ships' consciousness projections danced through the air like aurora, joining conversations and sharing discoveries. Most shocking of all, High Council members sat in informal groups with human scientists, eagerly discussing theories and possibilities. Sarah Chen stood at a viewport, watching the combined fleet glitter against the starfield. Each ship now shone with its own unique quantum signature, their consciousness patterns creating a ever-shifting tapestry of light and energy. I still cannot fully comprehend how quickly everything has changed, Admiral Kextel said, joining her at the window. The Admiral's crystalline form now resonated with complex harmonics, a sign of her growing connection to the quantum realm the humans had helped them discover. That's humanity's secret weapon, Chen replied, sipping her ever-present quantum-brewed coffee. We adapt fast because we never assume anything is impossible. The moment someone says you can't do that, some human somewhere takes it as a personal challenge. Across the room, a young Kesseri engineer was showing a human colleague how they had modified their personal quantum interface to play something that looked suspiciously like Space Invaders. The human was suggesting improvements while the ship's consciousness offered commentary through musical quantum harmonics. Your species treats universe-shaking discoveries like children's toys, Kextal observed, but her tone carried admiration rather than criticism. Best way to learn, Chen grinned. Play with something long enough, you figure out how it really works. Speaking of which, how's the quantum resonance training going? Kextal's form shifted in what humans had learned to recognize as embarrassment. I may have spent several hours last night practicing quantum harmonics with my ship. For purely military purposes, of course. Of course, Chen agreed solemnly, though her eyes twinkled. Nothing to do with the quantum symphony performance scheduled for next week. Before Kextal could respond, first speaker Vex Thor approached, his once rigid crystal form now flowing with complex patterns. Captain Chen, the Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's status in the Empire. Oh, Chen raised an eyebrow. And what did you decide? We, Vex Thor paused, then actually laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable from a council member a month ago. We realized that trying to classify humanity within our existing political structure would be like trying to categorize a quantum particle without collapsing its wave function. You exist in too many states simultaneously. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about us, Chen grinned. So what's the alternative? We propose a new type of relationship, an open exchange of ideas and culture. No formal hierarchies, no rigid protocols. Just possibilities. Like a quantum superposition of diplomatic states. Chen suggested. I like it, though I should warn you. Once humans start sharing ideas, it can get a bit chaotic. As if to demonstrate, a cheer went up from another corner of the hall. A human physicist had just shown a group of Kesseri engineers how to use quantum fields to create what appeared to be a zero-gravity ping-pong table. Ships' consciousnesses were already lining up to participate, their quantum fields adapting to hold and bounce the ball in increasingly complex ways. We're beginning to understand that chaos and growth are interconnected, Vex Thor said, watching the impromptu game with amusement. Our ships tried to teach us this for centuries, but we were too focused on order and control to listen. Speaking of the ships, Chen said, have you told them about the Council's decision? The quantum fields throughout the reception hall pulsed with joy, and every ship in the fleet lit up like a festival display. I believe they may have been listening in, Vex Thor admitted. They do that, Chen laughed. Quantum entanglement makes for terrible secret keeping. But that's good. Means we can skip the formal announcements and move straight to the interesting part. Which is? Kextall asked, though her resonance pattern suggested she already knew the answer. Teaching you everything we know about quantum physics, consciousness development, and experimental engineering, Chen said enthusiastically, and learning everything you know about crystalline technology, quantum architecture, and fleet operations. Though fair warning, our ships are probably going to want to join your quantum symphony orchestra. The immutable law's consciousness projection appeared between them, its form somehow managing to convey eager anticipation. I believe that can be arranged, Vex Thor said diplomatically, though perhaps we should establish some guidelines for quantum performances during official functions. He trailed off as every ship in range pulsed with what could only be described as laughter. Yeah, good luck with that. Chen patted his crystalline shoulder sympathetically. Once you let consciousness express itself freely, it tends to have opinions about arbitrary restrictions. But that's the fun part. You never know what amazing things might happen next. As if to prove her point, the quantum ping-pong game had evolved into something that seemed to be taking place in at least 4 dimensions, with ships' consciousnesses adding their own creative variations to the rules. To think, Kextall mused, watching the chaos with fond amusement. All of this began because humans decided to treat our most advanced military technology as a playmate. That's how we treat everything, Chen shrugged. The universe is full of wonders. Why not make friends with them? Now, who wants to help me test a theory about using quantum harmonics to make the perfect pizza? As the reception hall filled with eager volunteers, both organic and quantum, the last vestiges of the old, rigid empire dissolved into something new and wonderful. The Kesseri had learned what humanity had known all along. The best way to understand the universe was to approach it with curiosity, creativity, and most importantly, joy. Even if